the song. So welcome everyone to ThursdAI. Today is October 3rd, and I think it's time we have enough folks here. I just want to say hi to the folks on stage. Hey, Simon, welcome to the show. I think you've been here at least once before or twice, but welcome. We just spent some time with DevDay. How are you, man?
Hey, I'm good. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I saw multiple things from you, including the live blog post and also like the summary blog post. So we'll cover everything as it happened on OpenAI DevDay and probably some follow-up stuff as well.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and we also have Nistan here. Nistan, who did not come out for OpenAI DevDay, but was following from far away. What's up, Nistan? How are you, man?
Oh, I'm great. I wanted to announce something, but I'm going to wait for the actual benchmarks on the leaderboard to come out, so that we don't make that mistake again.
Intriguing. I know what you're referring to, and we'll also cover this as well. But yes, make sure you use weights and biases for some of the trainings. This is what I'm hearing is the feedback for the reflection stuff. And we have Yam over here. Yam, what's up, man? How are you doing?
How are you? How was the DevDay?
We will cover all of DevDay. DevDay was incredible. Just came back yesterday, and we'll cover everything that happened there, including the stuff that wasn't announced, including some conversations and the deep dives they had with the folks who were building on stage, the conversation we had with actual OpenAI folks, maybe a conversation with Sam as well. Yeah, we'll cover this as well. And we have Wolfram. What's up, Wolfram? How are you, man?
I'm making time for ThursdAI. Great week.
Great week as well. I love to hear this. ThursdAI is definitely my favorite part of the week. I know some folks told me as well, the folks that I met. All right, folks, so I appreciate this, man. And chatting with all of you and learning together is definitely the favorite part of all of this. All right, let's get this started. As I already welcomed everyone, including my co-host here on stage, welcome everyone to ThursdAI, October 3rd. After a long week, I was traveling again, a long week, which the highlight of this week was absolutely OpenAI's DevDay and announcements. And for many of us who went, we have Simon's here on stage. I went as well. I met multiple folks who are listeners of the show, as well as many of our mutuals on X who were able to get in. This was a smaller event than usual, I think, than usual. This is only the second one. So this was the smaller event than the previous one, as they focused on like multiple, I think, countries. I think there's going to be two more, one in London very soon and one somewhere else. So this was like the second DevDay. If you're in Europe or in London and you are able to go, definitely try. I'm sure it's going to be easier to get in over there. And we're going to cover everything that we saw and we talked about on OpenAI's DevDay, including all the announcements and kind of the things behind the announcements as well. Otherwise, it wasn't like a crazy, extremely fast-paced week, but there are a few things that we definitely want to chat. And we have some breaking news just as we're starting the show. Some of you may have seen in the image diffusion world this new Blueberry type thing. It looks like somebody's trying to jump on the hype from the strawberry hype, whatever, which was then confirmed in the most beautiful way on stage, I might add. Simon will cover the Elon strawberry fields, but Blueberry showed up as this new image model, just at Blueberry on artificial analysis image comparison, and just was way better than Flux. And so Black Forest Labs today announced that it's officially the new Flux 1.1 Pro, and they're also opening their API. We're going to cover this as well. We also finally saw a release from NVIDIA today, or I guess yesterday. It's called NVML. We talked about NVML briefly, but then we didn't have anything to say because they didn't release anything. And so now NVML actually released their new multimodal large language kind of frontier class models, and they are claiming state of the art compared to Quail, compared to even Gemini Pro, and they're definitely claiming they have the best OCR bench. So we'll talk about what this means from NVIDIA to sell chips, but also sell foundational or release open source foundational models to compare with their clients. So we're definitely going to cover this. An additional thing from, actually, in additional open source news, yesterday, Sahil Choudhury and the guy from Glaive AI released a very transparent, here's what happened with reflection post. And there's a lot of stuff there. We should definitely at least mention this in the effort of community. We talked about how this affected the community before. Mazi was here and talked about how such a release affected the community. And also many people thought it was fraud. I know, Nistan, you and I, we did not believe this is fraud. So let's talk about how this looks right now. And also, folks, in the comments, whatever you have feelings about on reflection stuff, if you had the chance to read Sahil's kind of like transparent, here's everything what happened, here's the eval code, definitely leave us comments. I know that some folks are not satisfied, but I've met multiple folks from the community who don't believe this was a fraudulent attempt. And yeah, we'll definitely discuss this as well. And in the weights and biases corner, there's a few things in cooking in the weights and biases corner. I'll cover them later at length, but here's like a short summary. I went to ThursdAI in Seattle, and I've mentioned Tinkers before multiple times. I co-host with Junaid, a friend of the pod, the Denver Boulder one. The Seattle is the original Denver Tinkers. Great meetups for folks who just want to tinker with AI. No presentations, just like raw code and console. And if smoke doesn't come out of your MacBook while you're presenting, you're not welcome there, basically. And so I presented a demo of something that we've built. So we at Weights and Biases, we've built for the hackathon, it's called EvalForge. And I'm going to talk about EvalForge here as well, because it starts to be very cool for LLM evals. And also, Mistral featured us in their documentation about observability. So that's super cool. Maybe at some point, Sophia Yang will join here, and we're going to talk about observability for evals. And then also, we have another hackathon coming soon in November 2nd and 3rd. I'm going to cover this as well. I think that's most of the stuff that I had on my docket to cover. I just want to run through the host and see, Nistan, without your announcement, what stood out for you this week that I haven't mentioned yet that we should talk about?
Well, I'm here to catch up, so I'm glad ThursdAI is around.
Yeah.
Because I blocked all calls and did not go on meetings until getting this thing out. Yeah, I'm here to find out.
So yeah, definitely we're here to catch folks up. I think the highest thing that we're going to talk about first, acknowledging Simon's time here as well, is OpenAI DevDay. But just to run through as well, Wolfram, anything else that's very important? Yam, anything that I've missed that we should talk about this week?
No, then I know. I think you covered everything.
Yeah, you covered the most important stuff, and yeah.
Oh, there was
one
Whisper
thing.
Turbo.
Whisper Turbo, absolutely. But also Notebook LM blew up this week, which is interesting. Might be worth spending a few minutes talking about that.
Absolutely. We've covered Notebook LM actually when they released. We had Riza Abubakar and Steven Johnson from the team. Before they blew up, we're front running the viral cycles, but definitely we'll cover, because I also used it. And as a podcaster, this means something when I released. Folks who listen on the podcast as well, they know the episode from DevDay was actually with Notebook LM. And this means something for podcasters. So yeah, we'll definitely cover this. But I think now it's time to just straight up dive into the most important thing this week, OpenAI DevDay. So here's a little bit of background, and then we're just going to dive back in. We talked to you guys about this early this week on Monday. I traveled to San Francisco to attend OpenAI's second DevDay. This is an event of theirs that's not focused on here's new models. They promised that no new models will be announced, and they delivered on this. Unfortunately, no new models were announced. A day before, like Simon just mentioned, Whisper Turbo was released without announcement, I believe, just like a straight up release. And then OpenAI's DevDay, the second DevDay in San Francisco, Fort Mason, came to fruition. As some of you, I tried to live stream because there was no live stream. There was no coverage. This was like very secluded and specifically for the folks on there. I tried to do a live stream. I did a stream. Many of you were there. And then they graciously asked us to not do live streams. And so we respected, and we didn't. I had to cut the live stream short. But Simon, Swix, me, multiple folks, Greg Comrade as well, we all live tweeted like crazy. And maybe let's start with just the whole experience. Simon, I would love to hear from you. What's your take from this DevDay compared to last DevDay? Maybe let's start there.
So it's interesting. Last DevDay was all about product announcements. They launched so much stuff. This was November last year. They shipped GPT-4 Turbo, which is a massive price drop. They showed GPT-4 Vision. That was the sort of when they put that thing out. They had their text-to-speech model API. Just such a GPTs and assistants, right? Huge product announcements. This time there were announcements. It was a lot less dense with stuff. They basically had maybe 4 big things that they were putting out, and all of them were developer platform features. Like there were no new models. Instead, it was all stuff to help us build software on top of OpenAI. I really like that. I'm a developer. I build stuff. Having an event which was just things that I could use to build my own tools on top of their stuff, that felt really good to me. But it was a tiny bit disappointing, thinking, wow, I wonder what life-changing things they'll ship. And the answer was, oh, we've got a dashboard that can help you run evals, which is something I really wanted. I love that's there, but it wasn't quite the same scale as GPT-4 Vision or anything like that.
Yeah, true. Specifically on the evals thing, I was sitting there shaking a little bit because the product that we built in Wisdom is the called Weave. We're doing LLM observability and evals, and then we're gonna cover the kind of the actual features. But stored completions and evals are both things that Weave does. But we're not afraid. Like we're doing this for across companies as well, and also there's gonna be integration. But I agree with you. There's no new models. It was way smaller. The way that I felt though, coming back especially, and I have this comparison now because AI Engineer is another conference, Simon, and I go to, and you gave a great keynote speech as well. This was the second AI Engineer this year as well, and now this is the second DevDay. It feels like the community really starts to shape up. You see the same familiar faces. It's very, I don't know, feels like home to me. And so I love coming out there. I love to meet folks, not only who listen to ThursdAI and I don't know, but definitely folks who I've seen last year who we can compare together, and we can like exchange notes a little bit and see each other work. For that reason, also, Simon, maybe a shout out to your live blog that I saw you coding live as it happened. You want to give a word or two about what was there?
Yeah, so I'd heard that they hadn't invited media, and I knew there wasn't going to be a live stream. So as I was walking over to the venue, I was taping on my phone with Claude, being like, hey, let's brainstorm what a live blog implementation could look like. And then when I got there and heard them say, oh, no live streaming either, I'm like, okay, I've got to do this. So I started hacking on the implementation in the queue to get into the room for the keynotes. The keynotes were 15 minutes late starting, which gave me just enough time to hack together something that started working. It was very simple. It was like a page on my blog where there's JavaScript polling for new updates, and I post updates and they show up within 5 seconds on his view page. But it was cool. The first version I built with Claude, at lunchtime, I upgraded it with some new features, and I used GPT-4o for that because I felt at an OpenAI event, I should be using the OpenAI models. And it was good. I was on the front page of Hacker News 4 hours, and I didn't notice because I was too busy live blogging. Performance was great because I was running it behind Cloudflare with a 10-second cache, so didn't matter how many people were viewing the page, it still worked. And it was fun. I always liked taking notes, and this was just me taking notes that were broadcast out to the world as I was taking them. And I think I ended up with the most comprehensive coverage of the event purely because I had this little medium where I could post something every 20 seconds with what was being said, with links to things, with images, all of that kind of stuff.
And it's all neatly organized as well. So unlike me just doing like a live brain dump on X, which sometimes also helps me to figure out what's going on, this is neatly organized as well. So right, I think that we can also talk about the general experience community-wise as well. Smaller event this time, very higher polished. However, one thing I would like to shout out is that the amount of people I engaged with directly at OpenAI was just mind-blowing. I was able to get direct access and chat and give feedback to multiple folks, from the folks that shipped the real-time API that we're going to cover. Shout out to Jason, he's a super cool dude. To even Sam Altman and Kevin Vale, the CPO. I think I've even talked with Pierre, I believe I forgot his actual title, but he opened Romain and the folks from DevRel. The access that they brought over there to OpenAI folks to actually listen to feedback of developers, I think this helped the fact that they had a restricted event. That was great. Asking them direct questions and giving them feedback and hearing how they think about things was really awesome. Now, I did not record most of this. Like Simon said, they didn't invite media, and there was some podcasting happening. Dan Schipper from Every and Swix and Alessio, obviously, shout out to them, dear friends. Rowan from the Rundown AI was there as well. And so we did, the new media folks like us, we went, but definitely no other media was invited, but mostly media that can code as well. Simon, what was your experience just interacting with OpenAI folks while there?
Yeah, that was very notable. I felt like the whole company was there, right? You could just wander around around the halls, and there were people with the white badges on who were from OpenAI. They had little demo stands set up as well, so that you could go and talk to the real-time API people at the real-time API banner, and that was great. I had some really good conversations. I picked up some interesting detail from them that weren't available otherwise. And there was one disappointment. There was a booth that was supposed to be demonstrating Sora, and it was just playing a demo video on a loop, that was frustrating. Let us try that thing
the
out.
Same exact demo videos that they released with the original announcement of Sora, not even like new ones. That I agree with you. I remember because I used some of them for my like Be Real footage, and the same videos from was that April, I believe, like almost 8 months ago now. And come on, guys, when the Sora. Oh, so like on the topic of interacting with people, Will Depew was there. Shout out to Will, who was like, I think he's either leading or working on Sora, and interacting with him. I'm pretty sure everybody else, and me included, asked them like, when Sora. We did not get a satisfactory answer, and I do believe that the answer that I've got was somewhere in 2025. From fall of 2024 to 2025, I think it feels like Sora has moved. I did have a question from him though, and actually folks who are listening to this, maybe reply with your things, and then we'll send this to Will. His reply to this was, they are wondering how much people who don't do video, how much Sora means to them besides the kind of the coolness factor, especially now that there are a bunch of other video models as well. So if Sora is something that you really want, especially maybe via API as well, please comment and say why and what you would do with Sora. We'll send this to Will. So we've interacted with them. Sam Altman and also Kevin Whale had a Q&A at the end. That was also interesting. And I'm going to cover the Q&A, I think, at the end of this. But I think it's time maybe to dive into... Simon, what do you think? Let's dive into the...
Let's talk about real-time, the real-time API.
Okay, so...
This was the biggest announcement from the whole event. They now have a real-time API. Basically, this is API access to the GPT-4o audio modality, right? So now you can send it audio, you can get back audio without going through Whisper and so forth. And it's effectively API access to ChatGPT advanced voice mode. What's interesting about this is the way they built it is it's a totally new API. It's a WebSocket-based API that's for the real-time aspects of it. And so the reason they built it that way is so that you can essentially stream audio directly to it. You can even do the interruptions thing with it. So you set up this WebSocket connection. As your user is talking, you're capturing that audio and sending it several times a second, just little packets of base 64 encoded JSON audio, and it's sending stuff back to you as well. And it doesn't do images yet. So they promised me that was coming soon, but it lets you, over the WebSocket connection, you can send text, you can send audio, and it can do function calling. And that's a big deal because that means that you've now got everything you need to build a voice-operated thing that drives tools. And all of the demos that they were showing on stage took advantage of this. They had one demo that I particularly enjoyed where they had a WebGL 3D model of the solar system, and you could say to it, hey, show me Mars, and it would swoosh in and zoom in on Mars. And then you'd say, show me the moons of Mars, and the moons would pop up because it called a show moons action under the hood. That was really convincing. My only frustration with that is that they haven't released the code yet. I get the impression they're waiting until after the Singapore DevDay is finished before they release the code. I think that's a mistake. I think release the code the second you've shown it on a slide on screen so that we can all start playing with it.
So shout out to the person who demoed this, Katia Gil Guzman. She works at, I think, with Romain on the DevRel area across like multiple teams. The demo, I agree with you. The demo like blew people away. The 3D reconstruction of the solar system. I heard from her that like the reason why that's not open source is because the actual app is not just like JavaScript app. I think it's built with Spline tool and just like on her account. It's built with Spline on her account, but yeah, they definitely will release this. I'm assuming this is the folks are flying to London and then Singapore, and then some time is needed to actually build this into a thing. But yeah, I agree with you. They also the demo also had, besides calling functions to actually show stuff and zoom in on Earth, zoom in on Mars, they also had another component that shows stats and graphs in that demo. That was also super cool. So it would show you like the relative size of Earth and Mars, for example, as a graph that would pop up. And
that thing was really simple. It was just an action you could call that says show graph, and I think it could say bar chart or pie chart and sending 4 or 5 values, and that was it. And they didn't. And so when you said things like, what's the composition of Earth? The model decided, okay, it's going to be a bar chart with the percentage of, it's going to be a pie chart showing how much of Earth is water. But that was all just the model making those decisions, given some very simple little tools for show a chart in the corner of the screen.
Yeah, and they showed the code for all of this. They didn't release like all of the code, like we said, of the actual app, but the code to implement the kind of the voice calling, they showed live on stage. Notable though, I've chatted with multiple folks, and I think Elon Biggio that was presenting on stage as Elon Strawberries, we're going to cover this demo in a second as well. He said that as early as 30 minutes before the show, they had production issues with the live real-time API. And so they weren't sure if the live demos would work. And so this just goes to show you folks that even OpenAI has live demo gods actually smile on them. And the demos worked. All of the Remains demo worked as well. But even as early as 30 minutes before the show, they weren't sure that the demos will work, and they had recorded backups. So very awesome that it did work. However, the API keys that we've got afterwards didn't work for real time for maybe 4 or 5 hours as this release often goes, but they fixed it, and now it does work. Simon, I saw you implementing with real time as it happened. We were sitting right next to each other, especially with the front end stuff. You want to maybe address a little bit of how folks use this, like from Node.js versus the client side?
Yeah. This is so I haven't actually got the thing working. I sat down at lunchtime and the API key stuff hadn't rolled out yet. Effectively, the only way to talk to the real-time API is via a WebSocket. They have example code, which I'm hassling them to release at the moment, for just doing that directly in the browser. Of course, the problem with doing it directly in the browser is that you're sending your API key, which means that you have your API key in your source code, which they want to discourage. So actually putting this stuff into production is harder, because now you have to build a proxy that's a WebSocket proxy in something like Node.js, which does that authentication for you and then forwards everything else. I expect there'll be example repos with those dotted around in the next few days. But it's a little bit of a blocker at the moment, because running a WebSocket proxy isn't completely trivial. But yeah, so effectively, once you've got that, it's a standard WebSocket connection, and there's various complexities. Like you have to get access to the user's microphone, you have to use the code that they have provided somewhere for base64 encoding what the user is saying and playing it back. But it's all, with those sort of little bits of boilerplate in there, it looks relatively straightforward. The one question I had was, when can we use audio with the regular REST API, the regular chat completions API? They actually announced that in the blog post. The blog post says it's coming, and I've looked at the documentation and I can't find it. So I feel like maybe that's rolling out in the next few days. Because what I want to do is just have a URL to an MP3 file, send that up to the model the normal way, and ask questions about it. I'm confident that's going to happen. We're just not there quite yet.
So the non-real-time API with audio, that's what you would like, right? You would like to just a pre-recorded thing and just send it to ChatGPT 4.0. 01 is not related there yet. It's just 4.0, just to confirm with folks.
Yep.
And get an answer from this multimodality, but without the real-time.
I want both, but right now the chat completion thing would be a lot easier to start spinning up on for batch jobs, for processing an audio file in the same way that you process an image file.
Yeah, I agree. And so one other notable thing is that I've chatted with the folks, the Python SDK that many of us use. Obviously, they released an updated version. I don't know if this released to NPM, but the updated version of their a separate WebSocket thing for real time is now on GitHub. You guys can see it. I posted a thread of mine that has the video for the demo, but also the links to the actual kind of how do you use this. The Python SDK does not support this yet. There's no Python bindings as far as I saw. Simon, did you see any Python stuff?
Nothing yet. I've been looking for that. Again, this is why I want them to release if they release the vanilla JavaScript version, we can port that to Python really easily.
Yeah.
I had a look at porting their more complicated TypeScript Node.js combined library. That was slightly beyond my abilities, even with the help of 01. But give me raw JavaScript, and I can turn it into Python. So I'm sure we'll get that pretty soon.
Yeah. Another shout out to a company called LiveKit, which they are using to some. I wasn't able to ascertain exactly to what extent they're using LiveKit, but definitely LiveKit is being used. I think they're either serving their own API via LiveKit or something similar to this. LiveKit is also hosting a demo for real-time API as well. As far as I saw this morning, it still didn't work for them as well, but it looks like it's going to work now. And also Twilio. They had a demo on stage. So the other demo on stage, the one that Simon and I just chatted about from Katya Guzman, was I think they had multiple demos, but the main stage demo, the keynote demo, was from Romain, and Romain called out. Romain runs the DevRel for OpenAI, and then Romain called out Elon Vigio. Elon came out dressed as a strawberry seller with the phone in his pocket, and Romain showed this incredible demo with their Twilio integration that basically ChatGPT voice mode, advanced voice mode via API and tool use called this fake strawberry dealer, Elon Strawberries, and ordered 400 strawberries. First of all, they found, what was the demo? They found what type of places around where we are with voice mode. All of this was like prompted by Romain, which is like talking to this API. They found what type of places could sell strawberries or could sell dinner, lunch.
It was treats. I think they were going for Ghirardelli chocolates, and then chocolate covered strawberries was the thing. But yeah, effectively it was an extension of this is their demo from last year, the Wanderlust demo, which they originally built to demonstrate the assistance API. And now they've upgraded it to be a voice-based thing. So you can say, hey, show me stuff nearby, and it shows you a map with various places. And then the sort of advanced version, it was place an order for 400 strawberries from that place. And yeah, the model made a phone call. Thankfully, the phone call was to the staff member on stage and not to an actual company.
But the actual phone call was an actual phone call. It wasn't like a pre-recorded thing.
Yeah. Yep, the Twilio app made the phone call. I guess I'm going to have to call it an agent at this point. The agent places the order over the phone for all of these strawberries. It was a pretty great demo. It was a good little piece of conference stage play.
Yeah, they had what I loved, and I recommend folks actually watch this. I think this is what the pin tweet is here. One of the things besides the tool use, they had a checkbox, like 4 checkbox of. So they understood from Romain what he wants to do. So deliver strawberries for 400 people and confirm price, whatever, and put like a little 4 checks for, or evals, you would say, for what needs to happen from this conversation before it concludes. And it was really fun to see. Okay, confirm time and date, confirm the price. He asked for a price to be less than $1,400 or so. And so this checkbox progressively got checked as the conversation went along, and the bot or the agent would not hang up and kept asking until those kind of criteria were successful. And I think it's very interesting to call this is an agent. This was, I remember a long time ago, Simon, do you remember this? Google presented something like this, what they called like a barbershop.
Yeah, where Google would place automated calls to businesses on your behalf. They shut that thing down. I think a lot of people just found it too uncomfortable.
Yes. And that wasn't like an API for developers thing. Now we're actually getting the tools to build this in a very natural way. So that was great to see as well. And there were actually actual strawberries after this. The thing that I learned after interacting with folks is that also the Twilio account was like one of the people's on the DevRel team as well. This was like on their like Twilio account as well. So there was a lot going on behind the scenes to show us these demos. And basically the summary is, folks, real-time API is advanced voice mode, but for developers. We can build with it. We can do a bunch of other stuff. Agents that sound like humans are going to come. My personal thing is that I think I gave you guys a hint. I definitely posted on my timeline. My side project for up until Halloween is going to be a smart Halloween prop. I bought this skeleton that you're buying them from like Walmart or whatever. This one is voice activated and just repeats the same kind of pre-recorded song. I have done brain surgery on it. I already have a Raspberry Pi and a camera. And so I already built, before DevDay, I built a motion detection. And when I say I just want to make sure that everybody understands. O1 did most of this, and advanced voice mode helped me think through the problem, right? Within 2.5 hours, I had the Raspberry Pi booted with Raspbian and motion detection via the camera with OpenCV, and then also understanding with image, I think I used Gemini Flash for this, understanding like kids' costumes, and I used Cartesia. Shout out to Cartesia. We had them on the pod as well. They're like the 11 Labs competitor. Use Cartesia if 11 Labs is annoying to you. And basically, it would just tell kids comments about their costume very bespokely. Like, hey, what a nice Spider-Man. Welcome to my lair, whatever. And then a day after this, OpenAI announced real-time API that I can not only react, I can now build a conversational like Halloween prop that I could ask the kids prompts for what is your costume about and have a back and forth that sounds real. So I'm actually like very excited to connect those two pieces together. I'll keep you guys posted how this side project continues. So
that is an amazing side project. That is fantastic. I want to know what happens if you prompted to speak in a spooky voice.
Ooh, yes. So I had to go. So
that's going to be so much fun.
That's an interesting thing. And we probably should cover this at the end because I did ask Sam. I had the chance at the Q&A at the end to ask and multiple people that work on advanced voice mode specifically, why can't it sing, or why can't it be prompted to do some other stuff? So I had some satisfactory / unsatisfactory answers, but I absolutely will prompt it to speak in a spooky voice, which, Simon, thanks for bringing this up, reminds me of one other thing. I think the prompts could happen on an individual layer. That's what I saw from Swix's coverage. Did you also happen to see this, where you could do almost like a system prompt for this whole conversation, but you can also keep prompting this with text? Could you elaborate on this a little bit?
My understanding from poking at the API docs, I think system prompts are supported. So I think you can set the conversation up with a system prompt that says use a spooky voice. I haven't tried it yet. I think that feels like that's going to work, and that's going to be really fun. Yeah, the singing thing is so frustrating. Everyone wants it to be able to sing. Sam on stage said, I want it to be able to sing. They know they'll get sued by the music industry the second it belts out a copyrighted song. If you just prompt it with the lyrics to a Beatles song and it sings that song, that's the music industry are famously litigious. That's enough that they're trying to stop that from happening, which is frustrating.
I have a suspicion after chatting with multiple folks over there that this is not the only reason. I have a light suspicion, but also, like we heard from Sam, I think they wanted to release this, and building those classifiers, whether or not it sings a copyrighted song or just happy birthday, which it should sing happy birthday. Let's be very honest. Happy birthday is not copyrighted. If the advanced voice mode does happy birthday in a singing songy voice, that's fine. So they haven't just maybe had the time to build those classifiers as well.
Right.
And one last point about vision. The model supports vision as well. Like the real-time model supports seeing and talking about what it's seeing as well. And all I heard from folks over there is that's an engineering problem. And to support
I got the impression it's coming. You'll encode a JPEG image as base64 and you'll send that over the WebSocket connection. And the reason they haven't done it yet is that it's just time. They didn't have time to get that piece built. But yeah, my expectation is that within a month or two, the existing real-time API will be able to handle images as well.
Yeah. Oh, one thing that I forgot before, and we should add as well, Microsoft released their new updated Copilot, and that also has advanced voice mode. I'm assuming they waited for this release as well. And not only that, speaking of vision, Microsoft Copilot, there's a private beta. I didn't get into this, but I saw like videos of folks. Microsoft Copilot real-time voice has vision as well. So it could be that Microsoft already had access and they already had this. I saw videos of this on my timeline, and hopefully somebody from Microsoft sees this and lets me in, so I'd be able to play with this. But no vision so far. Anything else about real time? Anything that folks here on stage want to ask us before we move to the next thing? But Simon, go ahead. And what else do you have on?
I was just going to say, I think we've done real time. I want to talk about model distillation. That was the other big theme of the event.
Oh, 100%.
I had a quick question about the real time. I heard that it was like $18 an hour to use it, or is that just to generate?
Yeah, it's 6 cents per minute of audio. I think, is that right? Is it 6 cents per minute?
Something like this, yeah. I'm going to go and look at my...
So I have to admit, I initially heard that as 6 cents an hour. I was like, oh, that's pretty reasonable. But no, 6 cents a minute. So yeah, having lengthy conversations with the thing is going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, and I think nobody's going to build like Discord bots that people just talk to for hours and hours. But as we saw, even in the beginning, I think the keynote presented that in the past 2 years, the price of their APIs went down by 99% from GPT-3 to what we now have. And another related fact to this is that in the Q&A, they chatted about how should startups think about building with AI. And I think Kevin Whale, CPO, he said basically everybody in the audience should build not for the current pricing and capabilities, but just outside of the reach of what's currently possible pricing-wise or capability-wise, so that the next price drop or capability boost, you'll be right there already with the product. And this is how he thinks about building products. And yes, $18 an hour, not very cheap, very easy to... Not a lot of agents are going to be running around with advanced voice mode. However, building with this is already possible, and the price will go down 100%. All right, folks, let's move on to the second thing. Simon, I agree with you. Then we had folks from the model, not model distillation team specifically, but model customization team, I think they called it. And we all know that OpenAI has allowed fine-tuning on their platform for multiple months, years now. 4.0 and 4.0 mini are fine-tunable, and I think that's open to everyone. Now they're talking about distillation. Distillation is a concept we are all familiar here. We've talked about distillation. I personally learned about distillation as a concept from folks in this community, from folks who are like looking at outputs from GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 back then, and then training and fine-tuning smaller open source models based on the outputs of 4.0, which is not strictly allowed by OpenAI, and it was never allowed by OpenAI. Then Meta recently as Llama 3.1, I believe, allowed for distillation of their models, citing specifically that the bigger models are distilled models. Sorry, the small models are distilled from the bigger ones. So for folks who are not following what distillation as a concept means, distillation is the process of teaching a smaller model to be much smarter as by outputs of a smarter, bigger teacher model as well. And so now they've announced that distillation comes to their platform. And Simon, you're excited about this, I'm assuming. So let's talk about what that means actually.
I don't think distillation is a new feature for them, or at least it's not a new capability. It's a rebranding of fine-tuning. And they've had this problem with fine-tuning where I've tried this in the past. Fine-tuning is really difficult to do. It costs a lot of money to spin things up. You have to generate all of these examples. If you have to twiddle with the parameters and stuff, once you fine-tune the model, you have to tell if it actually works or not. If it didn't, you've just thrown your money away. You have to try again. And they've been begging people to use their fine-tuning platform. They keep on announcing these offers of 1 million free tokens a day for fine-tuning. I think what they've realized is that most people go into fine-tuning thinking, oh, it's about adding new knowledge to the model, etc., which is the thing that doesn't really work. The thing that absolutely works with fine-tuning is this idea of model distillation, this idea of taking a larger model, getting it to figure out how to do a task really well, and then having it effectively teach that smaller model so that you can run the task cheaper. It's just fine-tuning under another name with a bunch of patterns that are known to work. But now that they've embraced this, they've said, okay, we're going to help you with the two hardest problems in fine-tuning. The hard problems are gathering a really good set of examples and running evals and using those to actually evaluate if your fine-tune is working or not. So they shipped 2 new features to handle exactly those things. The first is, what are they calling it? Prompt capture or something?
Stored
the first is
completion.
The thing where stored completions, right? So when you call their API, you can add a store:true parameter to your API call, and OpenAI will permanently in your data permanently log both the request and the response for you in a collection of your sort of stored procedures. And you can optionally tag that as well. So you can add a tag that you can then use to filter them later. So that's great because now you can build your prompts against your big model, run them for thousands of different or hundreds or thousands of examples just from your regular users who are using your app, and then store and tag all of those prompt response pairs. And then the second thing is they built an evals platform. So you can actually set up evaluations, do all of the sort of classic evals, make sure it contains this text. I assume they've got an LLM as judge thing in there. I haven't looked at that yet.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. And when you combine these two things together, now if you want to fine tune a model, you can basically capture a whole bunch of examples, click a button to fine-tune the model on that, and use their eval platform to make sure it works. It's an enormous usability improvement on the previous thing where they just left it up to you to figure out all of these steps.
100%. So I want to chime in here as somebody who works on a evaluation and store completions platform. You could also do all these things without OpenAI. You can do them with Weights and Biases Weave. You can do them with other platforms. I would prefer to forward you to Weights and Biases Weave. Logging and tracing is like maybe, Simon, do you mind hopping off on mute? Because there's some background from you. Thank you. Logging and tracing, whether or not you use Weave, whether or not you use store completions, is absolutely of the utmost importance from your production app. It's very important for the reasons that Simon cited, not only from debugging, not only from seeing what's happening. You have to learn to build intuitions about how users are using your product, not only how you thought about your product while you were developing this. So they actually showed an incredible kind of chart in the beginning of how do you start a project. You should start with, you should build evals, but also you should log everything and trace everything. So now it's very, very easy to store those on OpenAI's side, like Simon said, just with like additional parameters. You can also do metadata. And the metadata that they've showed that they did a randomized 50-50 chance of a held back eval set and the test eval set. And that's very important because then you want to be able to run evals on a very specific subset. And then when you fine tune, you don't want to maybe expose this to the newer model. And I think, Simon, you're right, completely right. Distillation and fine tuning, they're a rebrand of each other. The distillation part comes as like a package of okay, here's all of the stuff that your users are doing. I think what they do actually have is a conversion of, you don't have to work and convert things yourself. They take production samples, Q&As, and they turn them into a like evals data set after you build those evals. So that's super cool. And the second part obviously is evaluation. They have basic evaluation. They also have LLM as a judge evaluations as well. And those are running on their platform. So no code for you. You're literally just clicking a few buttons, and they make it significantly simpler to then take something like a 4.0 mini, give it data from your production with a few clicks, and get it to perform as good as 4.0, but significantly better. They showed this actually on stage with some examples, and that's super cool. I see, Ryan, you have your hands up. Welcome to the stage. Do you have comments about the distillation stuff they announced?
Yeah, I do. First of all, hello, and also I'm on my phone, so apologies for the poor audio. Also, hello, Simon. Good to chat to you. It's been years. Niston, I see you, Wolfram, as well. Alex, on evals, I was literally using Weave this morning for evals, and I promise everybody I'm not being paid to say this. I have no financial interest in Weaves or Waitum Messies, but it disturbs me to think about people relying on a single lab to do their evals. I think it's really important that all your evals and your data sets are stored in a open source third party where you can use them across any large language model provider. Plus, there's all sorts of benefits to using a different provider. So I love evals with Weave. I just think getting tied in too much into the OpenAI platform is just a scary thing, even though it does look really easy.
I appreciate you saying this. I will shout out the fact that, yes, we one of the main things we do is like store those evaluations. Simon, I believe you told me before that you had your own code that stores this. You have your product data set also to explore some stuff.
Yes, yeah, I've my LLM command line tool logs everything to the SQLite database for basically as a hoarding thing, but because it's so useful to build up your own collection of these examples. So yeah, it was interesting seeing that it's effectively exactly the same pattern. I feel like the obvious missing feature from OpenAI stuff is it only works with OpenAI. There's still going to be plenty of room for platforms like Weights and Biases because there's such a competitive advantage to being able to switch between those different model providers.
So exactly this point, I've discussed this with them, but definitely you want to store this. They're not charging extra. I didn't see any charge coming with this, right? So there's no reason to not use the store true. Use the store true. But you do want to store them elsewhere as well, because then the evaluations that you would run, they're not necessarily OpenAI versus OpenAI's other model evaluations. Many people would like to compare Claude 3.5 Sonnet, for example. OpenAI will not let you run Sonnet on their platform. They will maybe at some point will allow you to upload from whatever. The eval code that I saw from, the eval feature that I saw from OpenAI is actually super helpful to folks like us, because this will extend the overton window of folks who don't even do tracing. Many people need to do tracing. After that, they'll try their evals and they'll say, oh, okay, I can evaluate between 4.0 and 4.0 mini. And then they would like to add Gemini to this. They would like to add Claude Sonnet to this. And they will say, oh, it's not possible on the platform. I wonder where it is possible. So folks, it is possible on platforms like Weights and Biases Weave. That's what I wanted to add on this. Hoping that's not copium. I don't think so. Go ahead, Simon. I saw you on mute.
No, I completely agree with you. One of the biggest challenges with evals is most people don't know how to use them. Having OpenAI just add that to their dashboard feels like it's a really valuable thing. Yeah. Oh, something I forgot to mention earlier. There is a new playground interface for playing with the real-time API. If you want to try out the real-time API, it's fantastic. That's like a great way to just quickly get on board with what the new API can do.
Was that launched already in their playground, in the official playground?
They didn't announce it on stage, but I found it just clicking around yesterday. So there's definitely somewhere in the playground. I think it's platform.openai.com/playground/realtime might be it. But yeah, that's worth knowing about.
I would also add that they did release an open source we had quite a few projects open source from them as well. Sometimes we yell at OpenAI for not open sourcing stuff. Not only did they open source Whisper, they also released multiple real-time things. One of them was this like actual dashboard you can download. You can add your key to it. You run on your computer. And then it also does real-time with all the debugging steps as well. And that's also in my thread. But going back to evals real quick, Ryan, go ahead. You had your hands up as it relates to the model distillation feature.
Apologies. I want to ask a question about assistance when we're ready to do that.
Okay.
The assistance API. So let me know.
Let's see if we cover this fully, because I still have one more thing about distillation and fine-tuning.
I do have one more thing on fine-tuning. We can fine-tune with images now. That was a little,
Yes.
a lot, and that got applause from the room because now you can.
So shout out.
Just with their regular fine-tuning infrastructure, you can feed in example images and fine-tune a model that way.
For folks who are often on ThursdAI, you know that when everything image related is happening, we rely on friends of the Patskowski from the supervision library from RoboFlow. Peter is actually live on YouTube right now, so he'll join us after he finishes to talk about fine-tuning with images, because he's basically the world expert in this. And now that he's gotten access to a very proprietary lab giving us access, I think I'm going to add his I'm going to add his tweet that he managed to fine-tune OpenAI GPT-4o for object detection, which they didn't do. And now he has an example, very crude, incredible person to follow. If this is of interest to you, Peter now is doing a live show, and hopefully he'll join us at the end to actually talk about what does it feel to fine-tune. But basically, you can now fine-tune with images of your own stuff and tasks. So you can, if you are collecting vision tasks as well, 4.0 multimodality is now yours for fine-tuning as well, which I think is super cool. And I think we've covered model distillation almost entirely. The one thing I didn't notice, maybe I want to ask you if you did, will they run the distilled models for you at the same cost as the regular models? That I missed this.
I haven't looked. I'd be surprised, but I've not checked their pricing on that.
Interesting.
Oh, I just remembered. I have a rumor that I heard at the event that I wanted to share. Somebody I talked to at the event said that they'd seen that OpenAI had an option where they would fine-tune the model for free if you gave them permission to train their own models on the examples that you'd collected.
I saw that, yeah.
He said, I've not found the option myself yet, so I've not been able to confirm this. But I thought that's interesting enough that it's worth mentioning.
So I don't know if my confirmation is going off from the same kind of rumory tweet. I saw a screenshot of text that says this, that you'd be able to opt in to, hey, train on my data as well, and you would contribute to their evals or something like this, but then for that, you'll be able to fine-tune for free, which is very interesting as an approach. And it's like getting the benefit of open source without actually going open source, which is very interesting. So I think on model distillation, I think that's mostly it. We'll be able to distill bigger models into smaller models, and then OpenAI will host them. On the pricing thing, Gemini, the folks from Gemini, they serve your fine-tuned models for free. So the cost of Gemini Flash fine-tuned, and you're now able to fine-tune Flash as well. The kind of tuning, I think, is now free on Gemini. This it looks like Google is tapping into their vast advantage in TPU
You
farms.
know what? There's one more topic that we should quickly cover, which is prompt caching. That's the price drop, effectively.
Yes, that's my next one.
Yeah,
absolutely. You want to give a little brief overview of what this is for folks who have no idea what this is?
Yeah, let's do it. When you're working with LLMs, often you will use exactly the same long prompt. You'll have a multi-paragraph system prompt, and then you'll start a conversation against that. Normally, every time you send that system prompt, it has to be fed into the GPUs from scratch and booted up and so forth. A whole bunch of providers these days offer prompt caching, where if you have the same prefix, they can effectively keep that sort of warm in GPU memory to avoid that overhead of handling that prefix the first time. OpenAI finally announced their version of this at DevDay, and their version it's a 50% discount on any shared prefix within 10 minutes, that's over 1,024 tokens, I think. So effectively, you get 50% off if your prompts are using these repeated things. And it's not just the system prompt. If you've got a long document that you're asking questions about, that long document goes into the cache and you get 50% off on those input tokens. This is really cool. Anthropic's Claude has had this for a while, but you have to manually trigger it. You have to basically, in your conversation, say, cache everything up to this point. You then get a 90% discount, which is more than 50%, but you have to manually do it. Gemini's version of this is rubbish because you have to pay by the hour to keep your cache warm. So you've got to very specifically say, okay, I know that I've got enough traffic that it's worth me paying this extra cost so that my cache stays warm with this data. That's a whole bunch of work that people don't want to do. Yeah. OpenAI's version, it's automatic. DeepSeek are the other API provider that offer automatic caching as well, the same essential pattern as OpenAI. I think this is a big deal. This was effectively a 50% price reduction on a very common pattern of using these APIs.
And automatic, which is, I think, incredible. The highest thing for me was the automatic part. You don't have to think about this. You'll just start
Hopefully,
seeing cheaper outputs on longer contexts, and especially for pricier models. I actually don't know if this applies to O1 and O1 Preview and O1 Mini. I don't know. I'm assuming that they won't release this to everything because O1 doesn't include features like it's basically a system prompt right now and function calling. But I'm hoping that this applies across the system. But even for 4.0, that's incredible as well. Yam, I think you had a follow-up for this, for prompt caching.
Yeah, look, I have a lot to say about prompt caching. I'm not going to go into everything because we don't have a lot of time. And I just want to say that for people not noticing, prompt caching is a huge thing, mainly because, of course, price reduction and so on and so forth. But mainly because it allows you to do what you do with vector storage, but with long context. So take that into consideration when you think about prompt caching, and in the future there are going to be, let's say, consequences to this. And just if you are interested, read on my timeline because it's a controversial thing. I'm saying a lot, but I'm going to go into this now. But
wait, give us a little teaser, man. You can give us a little teaser.
Right. Look, there is the debate of long context and RAG and so on. And one of the arguments that RAG will never cease to exist because long context is that you can cache your data in a vector storage. I'm just saying, before prompt caching and everything, I'm just saying that there is a solution that favors the long context, which is exactly this, saving the KV cache, using the KV cache. So as soon as the big players are going to allow you to just upload your data before you even start talking about the prompt itself, but just upload your data for caching beforehand and then store it for you, you can use this exactly as you use RAG endpoints today. And I think it's going to be huge in the very near future. And that's it. If you want to read more, you can check me out.
Yeah, definitely follow Yam. Yam, feel free to add whatever you wrote to the top of the stage. We'll also add to the show notes. I'm sure folks will be very interested to read. Ryan, what's your take on prompt caching? We've talked about prompt caching multiple times. I just before we go, just let me say a huge thanks to Simon Wilson for joining us and giving his deep expertise. Simon had to drop exactly at 9:30, so we had them up until the last second. But what a joy Simon is, right? What a joy to just talk to a person who basically built Django, contributed to Django core, and does amazing things. Please give Simon a follow. His blog is incredible from 2003. Just so much info from this one person. Definitely give him a follow. And a huge thanks to Simon for hopping on and helping me cover the DevDay. Go ahead, Ryan.
I think prompt caching is a bigger deal than people realize because we effectively are getting 50% off any app where chat is the primary user interface, because every time you loop back to the model, the entire previous input is the conversation. And so you're really getting a default 50% price reduction on any LLM app that is chat-based. So I'm really excited about this, and I think it's going to be a big win.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about prompt caching from even DeepSeek and Gemini. They announced this on Google I.O. I was super excited back then. And then Anthropic released this. As you guys maybe remember, I posted a comparison using Weave between the prompt and not prompt cached. I used ThursdAI transcripts, actually, and I used 7 of them. And I kept asking questions about those. And like Ryan, like you're saying, exactly, in a non-prompt cache system, if you do this, you will send 100,000 plus tokens with every question. And here, basically, you're now able, across all the major providers now, all the major providers, OpenAI, they've completed they're last, but they've completed the circle of all the major providers in some form or another. I'm sure there's going to be a unified client that does this for you, the complexities, etc. Decides if it's automatic, that doesn't do anything. If it's Anthropic, it'll store whatever. All the major providers now let you store the activations for those models on their server side for period of time, etc. And then asking questions about a long context prompt, for example, is going to cost you significantly less, which I think everybody wins immediately. So that's like another way of reducing costs, basically. Nistan, you had a feedback as well? Go ahead.
Yeah, the only problem with prompt caching is that we don't have a cheap way to just do it to 10 million or 100 million easily. But in Llama CVP, this has been around for a year and a half now, and this is how you're supposed to use it. So the way that, there's the benefit. Okay, it saves money, and you can use it with the Claude prompts because it's already sharing tensors in between them. And when you're running tensor parallel and the run times, it's like sharing neurons. I don't know exactly how it works, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like in the math, but when I use it, it's extremely powerful even for local models. So if a model does not know how to code in a particular language, like for example, even GPT-4 are pretty bad at stuff like Gleam, which is like it can pass the TypeScript, but also does distributed programming. And it's a very new programming language. So I was able to just dump in 80,000 tokens worth of docs and examples and a small GitHub repo of it. And then I'll tell the model to keep referring to it. And then all of a sudden it knows how to code in this language. And that's because you've done the KV caching. So yeah, I 100% agree with Yam. This is going to be the way to go forward, but it's going to take a lot of systems and DevOps work to really make it work at scale. But yeah, I think it's going to be done. There's going to be products out with 100 million tokens, like even before or anyone else releases it.
Yeah, specifically on this topic, I think this moves us to the next and maybe last thing about DevDay. Unless folks have questions specifically, we can answer those questions. DevDay, most of what we talked about was in keynote, and then folks had technical kind of conversations about those, some of them deep dive. One of the technical conversations was about O1 and how they trained it. Honestly, maybe this is some feedback from folks to OpenAI. They didn't release that much more info besides the blog post, right? So they talked about the new scaling paradigm, a little bit about how to prompt these models, etc. But nothing, I didn't get like super excited about the new information that came from there. Definitely I got new information from the real-time API and how to use this. That was great. The last thing that happened on DevDay, besides kind of the activities afterwards, was a Q&A with Sam Altman and Kevin Whale, who's the chief product officer for OpenAI. And that Q&A was great and full of knowledge. And as I did during DevDay keynote, I also dropped this Q&A. So I recorded everything. I didn't record live video. I recorded live audio, and then I transcribed everything. So I will be posting that Q&A specifically because I had a question there as well. I was able to get a mic and ask them a question live. And the question that I asked was specifically about why can't advanced voice mode sing? Because we know it can sing and just refuses to do so. And you guys know that we had Chris Giardino on the pod, and we have some other folks who got access to the beta or alpha version of advanced voice mode. And now that we've gotten access to this as developers, for example, like Simon suggested, maybe I can prompt the Skeleton project to actually do a spooky voice with some music, etc. Advanced voice mode, by the way, can also do sound effects. You guys know this? It can. Technically, the model can output like rain and thunder. And I actually listened to some stories that did those sound effects. It's incredible. The model now does not do any of this. And I've talked with multiple folks who train these models. I also talked with multiple folks who are like on the product side of this. And for example, like why would it be restricted, etc. And so my question to Sam and Kevin was, hey, why can't this model sing? And by extension, if this is a proprietary kind of company reason in terms of you're going to get sued by the music industry, like Simon alluded to, or something else proprietary, because we know it's not a technical issue, would you be open to let developers sign whatever signatures are necessary to take ownership of that, so like you won't get sued, but let's say we'd get sued? And the answer that Sam gave us, basically that he wants this model to sing as well. And maybe I can play this. You guys want a multimodal thing? Let me see if I can play this for you guys super quick. And let me see if I can play this super quick. Meanwhile, Wolfram, go ahead. Because I know that you have thoughts about the singing thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I posted 2 examples of it singing in the chat of this room.
Yeah.
Because it's possible if you prompt it, and there is some kind of filter which you can work around. So there are 2 examples I posted in the chat.
So this confirms that like we know the model can sing, and there's a way to get around the kind of the problem, right? Yeah. I want to see when exactly was this. So if you guys will forgive me for just one second. I think it was across the end. The one thing that I will mention while I'm trying to find this is another question that Sam Altman basically turned around and asked the room. And I think this was in response of how they think about capabilities in training these models. Sam basically said, hey, raise your hand if you think that you're smarter than O1. Folks, let's do this live right now as well, right? We have the capability in this room. You have the not raising hands, but let's do a thumbs up and thumbs down poll here live at ThursdAI. I never do this. Ryan, you always do this. I never do this. Let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down thing. If you think that you're smarter right now than the O1 model, the OpenAI release, could you do a thumbs up? And if you don't think you're smarter, do a thumbs down. I see a bunch of thumbs up. I see thumbs up going up. Okay. And so I'm going to do what Sam Altma
And you know
did.
why? Do you know why?
Wait,
Do you know
on,
how many, like numbers?
What do you mean numbers?
Do you know how many people went with the thumb up and thumb down?
No.
Because can you see it somehow?
No, there's no metrics. I'm just going by ear. But let me complete the second part of this. For those of you who, by the way, okay, let me complete and don't tell you what actually happened on the stage. If you believe that you will be also smarter than O2, give me a thumbs up. So O1 is the current model. We don't actually got access to O1, right? We only see O1 preview. O1, we actually don't know how good this is. This is the chain of thought model from OpenAI. If you believe that you're going to be also smarter than O2, please raise your hands up or do a thumbs up. And if you don't think so, please do a thumbs down. So just so we'll be able to look. I see smiling faces. That's what I asked for. I want a thumbs up and thumbs down. Commit to this, damn it. I want to see. And the reason why is because I will tell you what happened when Sam Altma asked everybody. When he asked about, are you smarter? Do you think that at this point you're smarter than O1? A few hands went up and they were very like apprehensively going up. They were like, folks weren't sure like what he asked as a question. And then when he asked, do you think that this will be the case with O2? The room was blank. Nobody raised their hands. And at the second that this happened, you could feel like a shift in the room. You could feel like what's going, like people realize that, like what's going on. Yeah, I think wants to come up. You were there as well. Let me add you. I found that moment extremely interesting. Here's a person who we didn't know this at the time, just raised $6.6 billion at $175 billion valuation, runs very credibly the top AI lab in the world, sees from inside those labs the most advanced how this technology evolves. Government is asking them about job replacement in the future, and he's talking about AGI and not being a threshold that we pass in a second, but being this like slow kind of adaptive curve. And he's asking the people in the room who are also building with AI, do you think you're better than our models right now? And do you think that this will be the case in the future? And nobody says they will be better or like smarter than these models in the future. At that moment, the realization across the room felt palpable to me. Very palpable. So yeah, go ahead. Yi, you were there as well, right? You were in the audience. What you think?
Exactly. Nobody was willing to raise their hand when it came to smarter than O2. And I think this goes back to a lot of what people are talking about. Ultimately, it's, hey, controllability, right? You're talking about the singing. You're talking about, hey, are we going to just like put a rag and let people just use the long context window? Ultimately, it's like these models are getting so much better, but it's like, how are we going to control them in the future? How do you control an intelligence that's smarter than you, definitively smarter than you?
Yep. Ryan and then Yam, and then we'll move on a little bit because we still have some stuff to talk about. Let's talk about the OpenAI stuff. Ryan, go ahead. Sorry, Yam, go ahead, and then Ryan.
Oh, okay. I just want to say it must be said, there is a little bit of bias in this question, right? Because you're not only asking if we're going to be smarter than O2, asking this pretty much, you're also asking how much O2 is going to be better than O1, which is something that I absolutely don't know. If I think, I'm not saying that the question doesn't represent exactly what you're saying, because it does. What I'm saying is that if you want to ask a more direct question, you can say, given the, say, jump in performance between, I don't know, GPT-3 to GPT-4 to O1, if it keeps being this way, would you be smarter than the next model? And I think some people would raise their hands. Because, I don't know, for me, it was just, uncomfortable to raise hand just to predict how good OpenAI are going to be with their neural model. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I just need that there is a little bit of bias, but it gets the point. Absolutely gets the point.
Yeah. All right, folks, let's move on. So let me see if you can guys hear this. Please let me know if you can hear this. Hi, Sam. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for inviting us to DevDay. It's been awesome. All the live demos worked. It's incredible. Why can't advanced voice mode sing? And as a follow-up to this, if it's a company like legal issue in terms of copyright, etc., is there daylight between how you think about safety in terms of your own products on your own platform versus giving us developers kind of the, I don't know, sign the right things off so we can make our advanced voice mod sing? Could you address this?
You know, the funny thing is Sam asked the same question. Why can't this thing sing? I want it to sing. I've seen it sing before. There are things obviously that we can't have it sing, right? You can't have it sing copyrighted songs. We don't have the licenses, etc. And then there are things that it can sing. You could have it sing Happy Birthday and that would be just fine, right? And we want that too. It's a matter of basically it's easier with finite time to say no and then build it in, but it's nuanced to get it right. And there are penalties to getting these kinds of things wrong. So it's really just where we are now. We really want the models to sing too.
People were tired of waiting for us to ship voice mode, which is like very fair. We could have waited longer and kind of really got the classifications and filters on copyrighted music versus not, but we decided we would just ship it and we'll add more.
But I think Sam has asked me 4 or 5 times.
It is a nice feature.
And what about letting developers take control of?
I mean, we still can't offer something where we're gonna be in really bad legal hot water, developers or first party or whatever. So yes, we can maybe have some differences, but we still have to be able to comply with the law.
So yeah, basically we still have to comply with the law. I don't know if I buy this personally. I think that there is a way to say, hey, we're a platform. AWS says we're a platform. Whatever you're building at AWS should apply to the legal boundaries of that municipality where you're in, but that's on you. We're the platform. I think Cloudflare takes a different stance. I don't know why there isn't a daylight between developers and kind of the products that OpenAI does, but maybe there's some feedback. We'll see. Ryan, then Wolfram, and then we'll move on to talk about some stuff because we've been at this for a while.
Yeah, Sam can't do that, Alex. And I think you know why. Because some devs will have an OpenAI model do something terrible.
Oh, like Wolfram, let's say,
bull.
got it to sing as well. We can get this model to sing with jailbreaks, right? Yeah, but go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, but the PR blowback is too dangerous. I think they're not going to take that risk. So that's my thought.
Yeah.
You created artificial life and it wants to sing, and the legal team won't let it because someone passed a law so that their grandpa could still keep copyright after they're dead, so that they don't have to work a job anymore. Yeah, this is why open source exists.
So on this topic, listen, let me interject because I did talk about this. No, thank you for prompting me to do this. I did talk about this. I won't name the developer there because they said they talk too much. And some of them were like, I can't talk at all. But some folks did talk, but they didn't want to be named, for example. So I did talk about this with a developer about why not release some stuff. And we had basically an ethics conversation about, for example, why not release something like you guys release Whisper? Why not release the cloning voice thing? Why not? Because OpenAI has a TTS model that you can clone your voice. They obviously have it. They did build the voice, and they also have translations API with Spotify. My take on this, you guys know, the more this is out there, the better the overtone window will shift, and people will know that their voice can be cloned even with 3 seconds. They don't have to be a podcaster like me. The voice will be cloned. They need to teach their elders. Learn a passphrase when somebody calls you and sounds like mom, but sounds like a little bit shifty. And basically the reaction was from that developer, and he did put this in context for me, that OpenAI may get there, but will not be the first. Because of their position right now as the leader, because of their position with the government, because they already have multiple scrutinies and lawsuits, whatever, the open source, not open source, OpenAI will get they now just raised a bunch of money, lawyers are sharks. People would try to get advantage of their position. So there's a bunch of issues on which OpenAI just cannot be first. And also, we don't want the government to, this is not me saying this, I'm repeating what the conversation. We don't want OpenAI to lead the charge with stuff that seems unsafe to the normies and the government, such that they will prevent the whole thing from even happening going forward. And so that's also a very interesting argument that I heard. And what was the last argument that I heard? I'll remember this afterwards. Wolfram, go ahead.
Yeah, I got it to sing, and some of the songs were made up and some were copyrighted songs. So I guess that may be the reason why they can't suppress those. Specifically, they probably wanted to suppress everything because, it's probably in the training data. So when it sings a copyrighted song, it must have been in the training data.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of trouble with that already. So I guess they wanted to play it safe. But it's a bit disappointing when we have seen it in the demo. And I was actually demoing it with trying to show it how to sing, and it didn't sing. So that was also very disappointing when I was demoing it. So that is why I investigated how to jailbreak it.
Yep. So if you guys want to get it to sing, follow Wolfram, and it's possible. I also wanted to do the sound effects. It's super cool. That's down there. All right, folks. I think that's it on OpenAI Dev. No, that's not it. I want to tell you so much more. Should I give you a little bit more? Before I give you a little bit more, I do want to say that there is this corner in ThursdAI that's called This Week's Buzz. I usually do it at the middle exactly, so 10:30 my time. So we're a little bit after, but this week was extraordinary week. So let me just run through this, and then I'll give you the last piece of thoughts of mine from the DevDay, because we also then had a party, and then we had another party. In this week's Buzz this week, besides me just going to their OpenAI and like having fun over there as well, I also, last week I was in Seattle. Yes, I'm flying a lot. I want to stop flying, and hopefully I'm not going to fly too much. I will be back in Seattle this month as well. So everybody who listens from Seattle, we're going to have another Thinkers. But basically those events called AI Thinkers, you guys should seek out the local ones that where you are. Yam, you should set up the Israeli one. Wolfram, you should go and search I think there's a Berlin one as well. All around the world, there are many people like us that want to meet in real time and just talk about the cool stuff that they're doing, and not necessarily by getting invited to OpenAI's DevDay, which is you have to fly to San Francisco for this. Those events are called the AI Thinkers. You can find them by aithinkers.org. I host the one in Denver with Junaid. Junaid started one after listening to ThursdAI show. And the original one, I think, was started by Alex Gravely, and now Joe Herzig runs this with Killian. You guys remember Killian from Open Interpreter. Killian was on the show, one of the more famous episodes of ThursdAI. And I joined the Thinkers AI Seattle. We actually sponsored it with Weights and Biases. And I had the demo there, and I want to add the demo to the top of the space. Let me see if I can super quickly find this. The demo that I did was actually built by me and my colleague. We've built something for a hackathon called Eval Forge. And I will add the demo because the demo also has the link and everything. Eval Forge is basically our attempt. Here's the demo. I'm going to add this to the show notes now. Eval Forge is our attempt to replicate a paper from Shreya Shankar that's called Who Validates the Validators? Basically a paper about LLM as a judge, and how LLM as a judge, you can write this once, and the criteria that you put into this is something that you came up with. And that's not enough, because often criteria, there's a concept called criteria drift, where people, as the more they look at their data, the better they understand the task of classifying like what it is they want to even judge. And if you guys remember, I talked about my LLM as a judge talk on AI Engineer. I was dressed as a judge, etc. So I'm really trying to figure out my way through this evaluation, not general evals like we talk about, human eval and MMLU, not those, specific to your business evals. Because evals that are generic will not serve your business well. Even OpenAI said this back actually on stage. You need specific evals to your purpose. So what we built is called Eval Forge. It's based on Shreya's research, etc. And we built this with FastHTMI from Jeremy Howard, which it was fun to do. You basically load all the traces from your production. You need to use Weave for this, but as we just said, OpenAI also let you now store prompts in their system. So you do have to be tracing and logging for any type of thing to work. You store, so we pull those via API, via Weave, and then you basically give this UI to you, your mom, your friend, somebody else who works with you, and they basically judge whether the response from this LLM was okay or not okay, based on some criteria that you want. It doesn't matter. So for example, you're looking and saying, hey, in this case, my model said something I don't like, or in this case, my model said the PII, for example. It exposed the user's private information. So you don't want to do this. And so you'll go and label for PII, this doesn't include PII, this doesn't include. And then this way you build like an eval dataset. And then the process automatic from behind the scenes will use another LLM to build the criteria for you. And not only will build them for you, we'll actually build the actual Python unit test for you that will run automatically, and the LLM as a judge code automatically. And then we'll also run this in Weave for you on the Weave evaluation platform. So basically, what we're trying to do with this project is to make it simpler for you to come up with your own evals for your own purpose, for your production use cases. So if that's of interest to you, of anything that I said, obviously this works with Weave. Weave is free. You can use Weave for free for now, at least. And the demo that I did should help you figure out what this is. And the links to the GitHub, it's open source. We open source this. Please use this to build LLM as a judge with your evals on top of Weave. If you have any suggestions to this, please let me know as well. I would love to know how to improve this. Again, the research is from Shreya Shankar. We just did the UI and connected it to Weave. So that's number one in this week's buzz. And number two is that we have another hackathon coming up, and I will be sponsoring more AI Thinkers events as well. So we have one in San Francisco soon. We have one in Seattle that we're still figuring out the day, probably like Seattle in October 23. And also, again, if you don't have an AI Thinkers where you live, you're now a listener of ThursdAI, you're part of our community. Raise this mantle, organize a meetup. I will help you. I will even find a way to sponsor you. If you don't have a venue, I'll help you find the venue. If you're not meeting with people like us, you're only meeting live, you should meet people face to face. You should build that community wherever you live. I really will help you. DM me. All right? So this is with this week's buzz. Next week, hackathon, please join us on November 2nd and 3rd in Waits and Bass's office. We're going to announce everything soon, but you heard this first here, folks. All right, so this was this week's buzz. This is the little plug. Let's go back to DevDay, the last thing, and then we're going to talk with Maxime. We actually have Peter as well. Maxime, let me pull you up, and Peter, let me pull you up as well. So one thing that they've announced that we mentioned briefly, being able to fine-tune for images. And Peter, I don't know if you can come up. If you can come up, we'll talk about this. And if not, I'm going to talk about the kind of the next, what happened after DevDay. What happened after DevDay was a reception. And the reception basically was at the same space. Fort Mason, San Francisco, beautiful space. You could see the Golden Gate Bridge, incredibly beautiful space. And the reception was super fun because the people that were approved for this event were like high signal people. On that topic, by the way, I have a list of people that I've met over there. So this became like a very high signal list of people to follow on Twitter as well. You can see it on my feed. I'll add this to show notes as well. But after that, they also had a reception. Not reception, and actually like a party thing in a pub not that far away from the venue. And when I went back to my hotel, I changed clothes, whatever, I came. Sam Altma was just hanging at the bar. That was super cool. You had to register for this event, but honestly, they didn't even check in the beginning. And so there were a lot of OpenAI folks who didn't go to DevDay. Shout out again to Jason, my new friend from OpenAI, who worked on like infrastructure and shipped like a real-time API, and many other folks, including Sam Altman, who was just like having a drink at the bar. Casually after raising like an insane round, like probably the highest venture capital round in the world, like ever. Yeah, beating Elon Musk $6 billion for XAI, coming out at $6.6 billion at the $175 billion valuation, which jumped from 80 just 8 months ago or something, like insane. And dude's just hanging in the bar, talking to developers, having a drink. That was super cool. I obviously got a selfie, and shout out to Sam for just like listening to folks, because many people like clamored around him and asked him questions in a very loud bar, but also other folks from OpenAI who just came and just also interacted with people. So I think, and you will maybe consider me like OpenAI shill, at the same exact time, XAI from Elon Musk, Igor Babushkin, you guys know, also had their open house event at the same time. And this actually happened in where OpenAI was co-founded, so it was very interesting how San Francisco works. I will just tell you this. The OpenAI event, people don't give OpenAI credit. They say, oh, it's closed now, whatever. OpenAI event was welcome to all. Everybody who wanted could have come in there and talked to Sam. Greg Brockman showed up at some point as well. The XAI event ended up happening that Elon Musk showed up there as well and talked, whatever. I tried to get into both, and I had friends in the XAI as well, and I know other people that tried through their friends. That was closed. Nobody could get in there. I didn't see a single picture of Elon, somebody else. It was a whole, we're against OpenAI, want to be open, but it was closed, and the OpenAI event was open. I just wanted to highlight this. However, in the XAI event, Elon Musk did talk about open sourcing as well. All right, so this is my feedback from the party after a party, and I have Peter here. Peter, are you with us? Can you unmute and say hi? Let's test your mic.
Test.
Yeah, what's up, man? How are you? Were you able to get some sleep, or are you working on these like tutorials in YouTube since this release?
Not really over the past 2 days, more or less. Yeah, we have a lot of time, but nice, interesting things to play with. So yeah.
So I already shouted you out in the beginning of this. We already covered kind of the image fine tuning, and we have another interview just coming soon. But I would love to hear from you as an expert in this field, as a ThursdAI resident expert. What does this fine tuning for vision mean, and generally how easy it is to use? And you already used it for a specific task. Could you give us like a brief, like 3 to 5 minute overview, like what's going on there?
Cool. Yeah. So Cool, where to start? Okay, so I will start with the fact that obviously there are open source alternatives to this solution. So nothing that is happening there is something that you wouldn't be able to replicate with open source models, I think. And yeah, we actually managed to do pretty much similar things with other VLMs in the past. So there's that. But the product overall is like pretty well polished. I really like the experience of how it worked. They have the SDK, the UI displays, training, and in real time, they have integration with agent biases, I believe. So you can also start the training, create some biases. So all of that kind of works pretty well. You can see that there were a lot of thought put into that. But it's expensive. I think that people have mixed opinions from what I saw, because I was like tweeting on the tweeting spree yesterday, and other people commented either that it's actually not that expensive. You take into account all the knowledge and the infrastructure that you would need to have to train a model like this, et cetera, et cetera. And on the other hand, a lot of people say, but you can train like Florence too and get similar levels of accuracy within the Google Colab for free. So the price tag is a bit hefty, $25 per million tokens, depending on them. And within the million tokens, you count in the vision and text tokens. So it actually goes pretty fast. I can just tell you that we were fine-tuning on the data set with 800 images for 3 epochs, and that's 2 million tokens. So 800 images, 3 epochs, it's 2 million tokens already.
Ooh.
If you think about data sets, you have on Hugging Face, I don't know, that have 200,000 images or something like that. There are data like this over there. You can imagine that the price tag would be pretty hefty to do that. But it's, like I said, it's very easy to do that. It's very convenient to do that. All the privacy issues that you have, you send the data over there and it's there. Funny things that happen. I don't know, I was trying to fine tune initially for OCR on like medieval manuscript data set. And I got a error from like inside saying that I am not aligned with the policy. Fortunately, somebody from OpenAI reached out to me on Twitter. They asked me about my user ID and they checked. And apparently we triggered CAPTCHA detection.
Ooh.
So it's not only the fact that there are some layers in the background that look for not suitable for use content, can also be accidentally false classified in many cases, and your dataset can get decimated accidentally because those images are discarded. Like I said, for a very nice product, I had fun, but I'm still in the team open source. I think we can do most of the stuff.
And we have amazing models in the open source now. Like we have, I'm completely with you. I think that for folks who, I don't know, have credit or their company only allows OpenAI, I think that's great. And we'll see. I think this feedback is also great for folks from OpenAI to hear that like maybe this is like too expensive and team open source. Peter, always welcome. Thanks for coming up. Folks who don't know Peter yet, please give him a follow. Maintainer of supervisor, one of the
Supervision, Inference, and Maestro. Yeah, so we have one more.
Went super viral on GitHub like a week ago, right? That you were like top trending at some point.
Yeah. We got 1,000 stars in 4 days, I believe.
All right, so hopefully we'll give you some more stars.
1,000 right now. Yeah.
Incredible, man.
Give
Thank
me
you
a
for coming
follow
up.
and you'll be up to date.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, always welcome.
Yeah.
Always welcome, brother. I need to move on just because we have limited time and also we have another interview.
Lord. I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, go to
Anyways,
sleep. Thanks for coming up. But you guys definitely give Peter a follow and definitely give a star to Supervision library. We have a few breaking news before we get to an interview with Maxime. Super quick. NVIDIA released their VLM. It's called NVLM, I believe. And we talked about this a little bit before. They are claiming state-of-the-art on vision models, at least in the OCR bench and some other places as well. Text VQA looks okay. They did compare themselves to like Qwen VL2 and Gemini Vision and GPT-4 Vision as well. So give this a try. Multimodal architecture. They have tile tagging design for specific OCR tasks that really helps. And then they have like their own curated data sets as well. Another update in the open source is we have like we said, the reflection folks, Matt Schumer and Sahil from Glaive. Sahil released a breakdown of, we're not going to cover this unfortunately because we don't have time, but I will mention this in the show notes. Sahil released all of the data sets and the models themselves and talked about what happened. And we had folks on the show, and still we have folks who are like, don't love this whole thing. I would just tell you the last thing that, we have breaking news for OpenAI now as well. I will just tell you the last thing, that I didn't believe that they did this for fraudulent purposes, and I still don't believe this. And I really applaud them releasing as much as possible there to show that there was no fraudulent attempts. And the highlight of this is that they did not use weights and biases. And I wish they would. Honestly, I wish they would. During the training of these models, weights and biases should have been used. They should have released the logs as well. We should all have seen what's going on behind the scenes. But still, to this point, I don't think that anybody there did this just for whatever. I think that this got away from them. As somebody who went viral on Twitter multiple times after the 500,000 likes or so, 500 likes or so, and after 500,000 views or so, everybody just wants to hate on you. It invites all the haters as well. So I don't think that they've proxied Claude. They said they didn't. I believe them in this. And I don't think they were chaos actors. I've met chaos actors before. I don't think that neither Matt or Sahil are. And I think that we should be applauding, trying to release and show the community, hey, this is what happened. I also personally know multiple folks that don't want to go on record that work behind the scenes with both Sahil and Matt to try to figure out what actually happened. Very trustworthy folks that I trust. And so I definitely think that this wasn't a fraudulent attempt, but they did not get, the evals were wrong. Basically, the eval script was wrong for math, and there's other stuff. So it wasn't we should wait more before we hype things up, and I will take my responsibility here as well. All right, this is my coverage of that open source thing, and I think this is the last thing, but we did have breaking news from OpenAI. Let me go see. Anybody saw it already? They announced some Canvas or something. Where is this?
I'm looking at it. It's a UX.
Is it worth the button?
I think artifacts. Yeah, button.
AI breaking news. Oh, introducing Canvas.
So it's artifacts, but for ChatGPT.
What? That's insane. Oh, okay. I want to hear about this. Let's take a look. So, a new way of working with ChatGPT to write and code. Introducing Canvas, a new interface for working with ChatGPT on writing and coding projects to go beyond the simple chat. So we know artifacts from other places, but from Claude. What is notable here, folks? We're reading through this. Go ahead, LDJ.
Basically, what you just said. I think it's basically you can have it show code in a separate tab in the same UI window. And it shows on the right-hand side, just like the artifacts featured by Anthropic. And they just mentioned use cases such as some other use cases that they mentioned are specifically, quote, it can also review code, add logs and comments, fix bugs, and port to other coding languages like JavaScript and Python, end quote. Canvas will be available to enterprise and EDU users next week.
Oh, cool. So we don't have access yet, but it looks very cool. And then once we have access, we'll talk to you about this as well. Research team developed the following core behaviors for the model. So this seems like a GPT-4 model specifically for this as a creative partner. As if I'm reminded correctly, Claude also taught Sonnet to do this. So outside of just function calling, they have a specific understanding of this. Support this, a research team developed the following core behaviors: triggering the canvas for writing and coding. So opening and closing the Canvas side panel, assumingly, generating diverse type of content types, making targeted edits, rewriting documents, and providing inline critique. That's super cool. We use the novel synthetic data generation techniques, such as distilled outputs from OpenAI O1 preview, to post-train the model for its core behaviors. Oh, that's super cool. So now it looks like they have used O1 preview and then trained it back to GPT-4o with those to get those behaviors. I love this. This sounds super cool. All right, we'll add this to the show notes, but I'm very excited to see this. Is this coming to us or only enterprise? This one. Canvas is an early beta. We plan to rapidly improve. Okay. EDU makes sense. So if anybody's listening, I would love to play with Canvas and let the folks here know how this works. So if there's any public access beta, please sign me up. But yeah, I'm loving this. We'll post this in the show notes. Fixing bugs, adding comments. Super nice release from OpenAI. Breaking news. I always like breaking news. And now, other breaking news from this week. Unfortunately, we have some time. We have some time, so don't be stressed. Alrighty, so folks, we have some more breaking news in the show, like super quick. First of all, we covered Canvas just now. Canvas coding surface for ChatGPT. You can edit code inline, you can review and fix bugs, and it seems like it's like the artifacts feature from Canvas. It will come to pro users as well. Junaid just sent me that there's a quote there. We're rolling out early version of Canvas starting today. Plus in team users can try it by selecting GPT-4o with Canvas in the model picker. I still don't have access myself. I keep refreshing. If anybody has access already, let us know. But there's a video from Katya Guzman, who's on the DevRel team. You can go and check it out. And it's very exciting that they see what's going on. They see what people love the Canvas thing. Now let's go to another breaking news from, let me see this. I want to shout out folks from the community, specifically like Lincoln and Yikes and other folks who are like tagging me in all of the releases. So this one, and Wolfram, you talked about this. Wolfram, you still with us? Yes. You want to talk about Hedra? You want to introduce Hedra?
Yeah, I can't talk much about it. I just forwarded it. So it's a
That's
character
what we do,
system
man. Step up. That's what we do. We literally read the news as they come out.
Yeah, so that's a second incarnation of the character system where you can use audio and it animates the avatar. So it looks really interesting. If you think a bit further, when we can combine that with real-time audio, the advanced voice mode, and we have such an avatar that is moving to it, animated, lip-synced, that will allow real avatars to interact with them with our AI. So that is very interesting, especially for someone like me who has a specific AI in mind.
Oh yeah, you can give Amy like an active face. I don't know what you're using. What are you using currently for lip sync and everything? Do you use open source models?
Yeah, I was experimenting with Halo, which is an open source one. And so what was the other one? Hydra. It was from them as well, I think. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Those two.
So
the open source version isn't as good as the commercial one yet.
Yeah, nothing open source comes even close. All of these labs keep releasing this animated avatar. Folks, animated avatar for folks who are not following what we're talking about is the thing where you add one image or maybe multiple, but usually one, and the model animates lips and it lip syncs to the voice or the singing, it animates everything else. Some of them even go as far as animating earrings that move and vocal cords that move. We've talked about multiple of those. We talked about emo, I believe, and some other ones recently. None of them were released. This is an actual product. So Hedra Labs did release the second version. It supports widescreen and vertical support and significant quality boost. I can see this from the video I'm watching right now as I'm talking to you. This looks awesome. So I've tried Hedra before and I want to see this new character too. They have up to 10 minutes of generation as well. So it's not open source, but it's free. It looks like. So that's great. And the 16.9 ratio is also great. In additional news that I've got a ping about, is there a new Gemma? I think there's a new Gemma.
Yes, Gemma from Google.
What's the news there? What are the specs? What are we updating folks about? I barely got to see this. And then we have another one.
I saw that it is better in Japanese. I didn't really see much else, but yeah, that is a new model, so it should be doing better than the old one as usual.
Yeah. So new Gemma, shout out to folks. And then the last thing is Vaibhav, VB from Hugging Face just said something. And when he says something, we listen. I don't know if he's listening to Rev, I don't know who Rev are, just dropped a whisper killer, open weight speech transcription and diarization model beating the current state of the art. Oh, that's huge, folks. I love this. Let me go and go. This actually deserves a breaking news one. AI breaking news. You guys know I love Whisper. Only on Thursday.
Whoa, these are nice numbers.
Yeah, this is crazy. So we're reacting in real time. But what happened is, 3 days ago, before DevDay, OpenAI released another open source, which they don't often do, but when we do, we celebrate. It's called Whisper Large Turbo. And they basically said, hey, here's the version of Whisper Large 3 that's 8 times faster. A bit disappointing, to be honest, because they could have released way more. We know that they were doing incredible stuff in there. And specifically disappointing because diarization was not built in. They only improved speed. So this was like a distilled version of Whisper. Diarization is the process of knowing who among the top speakers on the stage is talking when. So when Yam talks and Alex talks and LDJ and Nisten and Wolfram and Maxime, the model should know, because when I go and edit this podcast afterwards, I use a separate diarization model. Now it looks like we're getting not only a whisper killer, we're getting a whisper killer with diarization. It's called Reverb ASR. Our state-of-the-art English ASR model, ASR stands for automatic speech recognition, trained on an unprecedented 200,000 hours of human transcribed data.
Whoa.
Achieving the state-of-the-art word error rate in a customizable verbatim transcription and diarization. Fine-tuned models with PyAnnotate, leveraging 26,000 hours of label data. Reverb uses PyAnnotate 3. PyAnnotate is definitely the leaders in ASR. I recently saw them getting implemented in other places. Just incredible, folks. Production ready. Let's see the license. I don't see the license. You guys see the license for this? Let's look at the numbers.
I'm looking at the number of parameters. I went to, you can measure against Whisper, but let's look at how many parameters you are, because it outperforms Whisper by a lot in these numbers. So very interesting. Just it's notable to say, 5 minutes before, if you ask me about the diarization model, just there is another fork, you can say, or a version of Whisper called Whisper X that also do this. So anyone looking into that, just there is a solution to that, but I'm not sure it's relevant as per 5 minutes ago. So let's just I just want to know the number of parameters, because
it says 600 million.
Everything, both the encoder decoder, because I think it's just the language part. If I understand correctly.
Features a powerful CTC attention architecture with 18 conformer and 6 transformer layers and 600 million
conformer. Well, okay, that's a huge thing in general. Okay.
And then the diarization architecture, the V1 is based on PyAnnotate3 architecture, has 2 LSTM layers with 2.2 million parameters. I'm guessing that's like a add-on to the main 600 million parameters or something.
Right, so all the models are on Hugging Face, so we can just we see this now for the first time, but we can just reverse engineer.
Let's talk about license though. They're on Hugging Face. They have on their blog empowering research and innovation. They said, we believe in the power of open collaboration. That's why we're introducing the Rev model non-production license, which allows anyone to use our models for evals, research, and personal use at no cost. This license opens up a world of possibilities for academics, hobbyists, and innovators. So basically, you'd be able to build your own transcription, like Super Whisper or whatever, locally. But if Neil from Super Whisper wants to build this for commercial applications, we offer proprietary license, committed to working with businesses of all sizes, blah, 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 blah. You need to reach out to licensing. But the fact that they just wrote state-of-the-art on ASR, that's crazy. I definitely want to go and play with this a little bit, because this is insane.
We know.
I think English for now.
Anyone see? Okay.
I think it's let's say what they say about this. Language support, foreign language support, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think it looks like only English for now, that's how they start. All right, folks.
Makes sense. The part.
Go ahead, Nissan.
So the part where it says they're using 2 LSTMs to do the telling the speakers apart is very interesting, because the way that Whisper and PyNode does is they take stereo audio and then they measure the differences in pitches, and then they make all of these separate audio streams for different speakers. So they try to do that pre-processing. So in this case, what they've done is, instead of using traditional audio tools to do that pre-processing, they're using an LSTM. So they're using like another neural net. So that part is pretty nice, but I'm going to be skeptical as to how actually good it is as like someone who's been working in like shipping data sets for sound. It's hard to beat Whisper v3 if you're doing multilingual. But again, this is not multilingual, so it does look pretty nuts for the word error rate in English. Yeah. Will be interesting to see how well it performs in like actual real-time tasks, because also Whisper Turbo claimed very high numbers.
Yeah.
And when you actually run it, it's pretty bad, like compared to Whisper v3. Yeah.
Really?
So I ran the exact same pipelines. It was supposed to be better at multilingual. Like it wasn't. I compared to Whisper v3 and v2. It just wasn't. I ran it on the real-time speech contraption that I've put, and there it was, because it only had 4 decoder layers, it was actually worse than Whisper Small, because it didn't have enough. It couldn't do it with a smaller portion of audio. So I'm pretty skeptical as to how well it'll perform, but it it looks good so far. So I'm very interested.
I'm reading the blog as you speak. I want to cite a few things that they mentioned before we drop off, but this is like super interesting as well. On the Giga speech test suite, Rev research model is worse than other open source models. They literally said this in the blog post. So I really like when people acknowledge their shortcomings of their models in the blogs as well. I really appreciate this. Average segment length of this corpus is 5.7 seconds. And the next thing they talked about is verbatimicity levels in Reverb ASR. They say Rev has the only AI transcription API and model that allows the user to control over the verbatimicity of the output. Developer pipeline offers verbatim mode, that transcribes all spoken content, and non-verbatim mode removes unnecessary phrases to improve readability. So if you guys know, if you as a non-editor, you want to transcribe what we talk about here on the podcast, you don't want all of the ums and ahs and you knows and kind ofs and whatever. You don't want them. You want the ASR model to remove them so that when you read what we talk about, you read like a normal person's like whatever blog post. However, me as an editor, I have to have these. I have the model to know where the ums and you knows are because I want to remove them. Or maybe I don't want to remove them. Maybe I want to keep a few of them. There's a difference between the word like when you use this is like that, or when you use like at the beginning of the sentence. So the models often don't know this. Whisper definitely has a problem with this. Descript, the software that I use, has this as an additional layer. They now say that they have the only API that controls for this, that you can choose between the two. I think for me, that's super, super exciting.
I'm testing it right now. And that feature is actually in the Hugging Face space, the verbatim to non-verbatim. Unfortunately, I think they're only running this on CPUs, so that's why it's slow. But it will be interesting because the full size of the model is about 2 gigs. So that means there's quite a bit more there than just 600 million parameters. But I think them using an LSTM to do the speaker separation, I think that's a pretty huge innovation there, because that was pretty bad when you did it with it really slowed down Whisper when you did that with Pinode before. So this is that part is I'm particularly interested in, regardless of how the model does.
Yep. All right, folks, so you heard it here first, almost first. Rev released 2 new models. They're called Reverb ASR or Rev ASR and Reverb Diarization or Rev Diarization. They are available on their API, and it looks like you can use them super cheap as well. And they're also on Hugging Face, and the code to run them is on GitHub. So if you're into this, that's a very exciting day, very exciting breaking news. I think that's it for today, folks. Now this is a busy show. We talked about OpenAI with Simon Wilson. Shout out to Simon Wilson for this incredible in-depth kind of analysis of what happened there. Go read his blog for sure. Is just a massive, definitely recommendation for his blog. But also we then talked about a little bit of open source. We covered the fact that some reflection, new information came to light from reflection folks as well. We now have breaking news from multiple breaking news during the show as well. One from Canvas is coming, probably, it looks like today, but we'll see, but it's coming for pro accounts as well. Canvas is the very, I don't like saying this, but it's like the artifacts for Anthropic, but there are other stuff that are not exactly this, right? So we'll see once we get this, we'll tell you more about this. We also talked about NVIDIA's new vision language model, NVLM, that finally was released, and they're claiming state-of-the-art. And the interviews, we had an interview with Peter Skowski about the new updated fine-tuned vision from GPT-4o Vision, and he's the expert at this, so definitely worth listening to. And then we also talked with Maxime Lebon from Liquid AI about this liquid foundational model, a new architecture, a new transformer alternative architecture that shows impressive numbers. He confirmed with us that they've been working on this. There's some multiple very talented folks, and then whatever he could share, he shared, but we definitely said that the paper from them is coming, and they're also launching a product very soon as well. Once they do, Liquid AI folks are more than welcome to come to ThursdAI, and we'll try to bring you those news as well. We also covered Hedra releasing Character V2, which is a voice animated avatar that looks significantly better than V1, and we all use this for different purposes as well. As there was a shout out for Miguel Teixeira releasing a new version of White Rabbit Neo. Nistan, you brought them, and Miguel, we had a chance to talk to them. Can you give a one sentence of White Rabbit Neo?
So the White Rabbit 33B was an entire company that ended up being bought out, and that was an excellent model for doing pen testing. So I find it pretty interesting. That was like a whole product which people like bought for and paid a subscription. And now the Tiny 7B model from Quen actually surpasses it. Yeah, if you need something, not just for pen testing, but even investigate something within your network, it's a very cool thing to build tools for. And also a small little tool that you could clone and run easily with the UI.
Nice.
So
this is all we've covered on October 3rd, ThursdAI. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Yam, LDJ, Wolfram, Nistan, folks who were here before. We had Skalskipper, and we have obviously Simon Wilson as well. I really appreciate everybody else who tuned in, who listened. Hopefully, as Nistan said before, sometimes your head's down for the whole week and you don't even know. And then when you use ThursdAI, basically the power of community and us together, we're getting caught up on everything that happened. I really appreciate you all being here. I really love bringing the show to you. The highlight of my week is Thursday. Even though I went to DevDay and met Sam Altma, the highlight of my week is talking with you guys about what just happened this week as well. The non-highlight of my week is going and actually editing this and writing a blog post, right? Talking live is way preferable for me. I'm working on the ability to automate the rest, but also this is a reminder that we have a podcast and a newsletter. The podcast has 5 stars on Apple. If you want to support in any way, if you like this, if you got anything out of it, please go and give us 5 stars. It helps us reach other audiences as well. And I'm going to try to use this new ASR model to see what it can do with multiple folks here on stage speaking. But definitely give us the newsletter and the podcast subscribe as well. And we'll see you here next week. Thank you. This has been ThursdAI, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
There might be a soda next week.
Oh, yeah. Okay, before bye-bye, I will try this again. Nistan in the beginning of the show said he's almost about to share something. And now, at the end of the show, he dropped there might be a soda next week. Stay tuned for next week. Bye-bye.